Alright folks, we have returned. Thanks to these three for helping me out. It's time for the next scene. It's time for the next case. There's only one more in this district, Shear murder. You've been doing a smashing job at the flying squad since your arrival in Concordia, Matthew. Not the least of which is keeping any hints of complicated work off my desk. Not only have you solved 4 murders, you've already uncovered pockets of corruption within the Concordian Police Department. A young officer manipulated into destroying important evidence under duress from one of this city's most undesirable individuals was found to be responsible for starting the Concordian fire. At the same time, there are rumors that large numbers of Irish immigrants are being exploited as cheap labor. To top it all off, according to your sources, a leading member of the Irish community may not be as respectable as we all think. But with the Irish population in Concordia growing by the day, your search is going to be difficult. I'm afraid that we'll have to wait, Arthur. I have just been informed that a dear friend of mine, Maximilian Poe, has been found dead in his greenhouse. Max is, or was, a keen businessman who's had a rough time of late. His wife, Valeria, tragically passed away 6 months ago. Understood, Commissioner. Matthew, you're going to have to put everything else on hold. I need you and Detective Bontemps to get down to the Poe residence. Quick, smart.
He's under the impression that the police found a gun special during the search.
So they think they have the murder weapon, but we don't?
If the search of Ruben's apartment turned up anything, it's news to me.
Of course not. If they found the smoking gun, it would be nice if they kept us in the loop.
And as you can see, I do have the cat this time. I decided to buy some cash and purchase the cat. I am also currently working on case number 15 in the World Edition in Elite mode, but that is going to be posted by the. But that will be all posted by.
Okay, so ask.
Did anyone find any type of weapon in Peter Ruben's home?
Unless you count the world's most important record collection.
But that will all be filmed and posted before this video even comes up. And I've got the first star. I'm one of the first people in here.
Which is why they hired me. Hey, Jack. Serena.
How's it like, Danielle?
Great. Doctor says by this time next year I'll be dancing the night.
Unless death by garden shears is the leading cause of accidents in New Haven, the master of the house appears to have been murdered. I'm no coroner, but it does not take an expert to realize this man was stabbed with those garden shears. Richard should be able to tell us more. Thank heavens! The flying squad! Poor Master Poe! This is so... Calm down, my dear. What is your name? Audrey Scott. I work in the master's kitchen. I know someone with a very similar name, but that would be a B instead of a D. Try to relax, Miss Scott. Marshal Matthew will need to have a word with you in a moment. But before we do that, Matthew, I noticed you've astutely observed the fingerprints in the icing on that cake server. With luck, it will be a good enough specimen to find a match in that catalog the department is compiling. Right, Matthew, the commissioner and the chief are counting on us to solve this murder. We mustn't let them down.
And his children had left for the day. 1 hour later, they emerged with a file containing my client's 38, which they removed from the premises.
How could this neighbor even know that the men that she saw were police? It could have been a burglary.
Oh, come on. Burglars in suits and trench coats?
In any event, the court can't exclude evidence that people don't have in the first place.
He's right, Miss Melnick. It seems your motion is moot. But if I were you, Mr. McCoy, I'd get to the bottom of this.
I checked with the Rubens local precinct. There's no record of any ongoing case.
What about other jurisdictions?
There's no precinct in the tri-state area investigating the Rubens.
And I need to get some stars, so sit tight. Okay, I
The
have
son was angry. About the water bill.
8 stars. I'm going to examine the fingerprint now.
So angry he was capable of killing a responsible. You put it words in your mouth. Mr. Rubin, the gun was found with his fingerprints, the murder weapon. If you
There we go.
manufacturing evidence. Now, you think this can never happen?
Sheila Black. Good show, Matthew. You found a match with a fingerprint on the cake server in the person of Sheila Black. If Miss Black was recently with our victim, the logical solution is to speak with her and find out what she knows.
The state of New York versus Peter Rubin. The prosecutors are the people. You are.
About the murder?
You are the people.
Pardon me, Miss Black. Marshal Matthew would like to ask you some questions about Maximilian Poe. He has been found murdered.
This case
Good heavens! Max is dead? I only saw him just this morning.
should take place.
Oh, that poor man has suffered nothing but misery since his wife Valeria died. And now this.
Victimized.
How are the two of you acquainted?
How they took his
Max and I have been close friends for many years.
even his privacy.
Since his wife's death, he'd been very unhappy and in a bad way, naturally. He's been seeing the doctor nearly twice a week. All I could do was be there for him in any way I could. I never thought it would end like this. We are deeply sorry for the loss of your friend, Miss Black. If you think of anything that could help catch his killer, do let us know.
Bring him back.
It sounds like Maximilian Poe has had a rough trot grieving the loss of his wife, but why would this end in murder?
The home actor in the
Tip-top thinking, Matthew. Miss Black said Poe is receiving frequent medical treatment. Quickly, to the doctor's office. We'll do that first. First, talk to Audrey Scott. Now, Miss Scott, is there anything you can tell Marshal Matthew about what happened here? I brought Master Poe high tea on the terrace before getting back to preparing tonight's roast pheasant. When I came to clear the dishes, I found him murdered, and his signet ring had been stolen. The killer stole his ring? We'll make a note of the theft. Now, is there anyone you can think of who might have wanted to harm Mr. Poe? Master Poe never told me anything about his private affairs. I'm just a kitchen hand. I know my place. But he was so generous and kind. He was always a true gentleman. Why would anyone want to kill him? One couldn't pray to work in a better household. What am I going to do now that the master and the mistress are gone? Oh, more tears. Well, please keep the house open, Miss Scott. We may need to return with more questions.
Speak up. Pens, voices, votes.
Aha, I think I see a clue.
Or perceived injustices with violence.
Leather satchel.
Reached a verdict. We are on the counts of murder and attempted murder in the second degree. How do you find? We find the defendant Peter Rubin guilty.
Got it.
Verdict in the Rubin case is guilty on all counts.
The jury was only out 35 minutes.
Our victim's physician seems to be out on business, Matthew, but I see you've already picked up some clues. A gander inside that leather bag is certainly a wise course of action. Those initials are the same as the victim's. Likewise, that medicine jar appears to be part of the victim's treatment. Retrieving that faded section of the label should tell us more.
Who's Frank?
My father.
How does your dad know so much about it?
Oh, yeah, he knows as good as you do.
Yes, starring William Shatner. And also and powerful.
He's a con man.
Psych. Next.
Oh,
Next. A beautiful young woman is on that bridge.
torn card.
From that bridge, well, something.
Blast! That card you found in the victim's bag is torn. Rich pieces of paper won't do us any good. But you've proven to be adept at putting these sorts of things back together, Matthew, so I'll leave this torn card in your capable hands.
Seen an apparent body in the back of the pickup truck. But who is driving the truck? And what is the motive?
There was something more going on.
just a woman leaping from a bridge for no apparent reason. It was early on a Saturday morning.
Don't be fooled by the fancy writing. That's a threat if I've ever heard one, Matthew. More no more, for you shall soon join your beloved. The killer must have left this card for the victim, playing some cruel mind game. Obviously, the card isn't signed, and there aren't any other distinguishing marks to identify the message's author. You may have a point, Matthew. It's possible that message could be a quote of some description. Perhaps Miss Holloway can tell us more.
Several days. But who was this woman? Police released a description to the media. Her manager from work called in, an ex-boyfriend called in saying that they recognized the description.
Okay, 3 hours, and the medicine.
She was wearing. From the victim's butterfly pendant, she was identified as 21-year-old Rachel Ciani.
I kept telling myself that it wasn't true. And I told myself that all the way up until her funeral.
Marvelously done, Matthew. You revealed the details of our victim's treatment. The victim was receiving a rather hefty dose of laudanum, prescribed by a certain Dr. Ezekiel Jones. This is clearly the physician we are looking for. Let us find Dr. Jones and ask him about the victim's frequent visits.
Just to pay her way through college. The way she described it to me was that she was dancing in an extremely skimpy bikini.
Rachel worked at a place
About the
called
victim's treatment.
International Gentlemen's Club across the bridge in Pennsylvania.
Dr. Jones, I presume? This is Marshal Matthew, and we're from the Concordian Flying Squad. We'd like to ask you about one of your patrons, Maximilian Poe. I will assist your inquiries to the best of my abilities, but confidentiality will limit what I can talk about naturally. I'm afraid those rules no longer apply. Mr. Poe has been murdered. Murdered? How horrid! Truly devilish tidings. We understand Mr. Poe made frequent appointments of late, and it appears you were prescribing a rather aggressive dosage of laudanum. I admit the prescription was quite high, but Maximilian was very depressed. A more sorrowful case of grief I have not seen. Laudanum is known to have powerful antidepressant qualities, nothing like a jolly dash of opiates to put some color in one's cheek. Beyond his medical status, I'm afraid I cannot be of help. Apart from the death of his wife, Maximilian never confided in me about his personal affairs. We appreciate your time, Dr. Jones. We'll let you get back to your patients.
There were some fibers that were consistent with the sweater that she had on, but there was also some blood stains on the outside wall of the bridge. If the blood on the bridge was Rachel's, then this might...
I'll see you guys when these two are done. See y'all then. Alright, for folks, we've returned. Let's get the results of the written message first from Evie. Surely you've made some headway with that message Matthew sent you, Miss Holloway. You've been squirreling through your books for hours.
Brings it down to the alley to kill him.
I'm afraid not. I've searched the entire archive, and this message is not a direct quote from any existing literature, be it poems, books, or otherwise. It's a genuine murderer's original.
We get an outcry witness, we got ourselves a chance.
This is hardly the time for jest, Miss Holloway. We're trying to find a killer.
This may explain why.
Quite right, Mr. Bontemps. Now, while the message doesn't tell us anything about the killer, the letters themselves do. This text is written in copperplate, a specific style of calligraphy. Although quite popular, copperplate is a very precise script that requires particular training in penmanship. Which means you're looking for a killer who writes calligraphy. My word, Miss Holloway, a clever deduction, if I do say so myself. Our killer writes calligraphy.
I'm telling you, I know my daughter, and she was I'd like you to talk to our medical examiner. She can explain how she came to the finding. Thank you. You know what? I will.
2 minutes to go, but first I need to transfer some videos, so sit tight.
She felt things very...
Alright folks, we have returned. Let's get the results of the victim's body. Richard, my good man, not much of a challenge this one, I'm afraid. A straightforward case of stabbing, I imagine. It is rather disappointing, as I really could use a distraction. I'm doing some experience on the effects of sleep deprivation and I'm exhausted. Haven't slept a wink in 3 days. As yet it hasn't affected my clear judgment, Miss O'Malley. Richard, I'm Bontemps. Of course you are, and you are quite right. It doesn't take a genius to conclude the victim was stabbed with these garden shears. The crucial detail was harder to spot, but even a lack of slumber couldn't make me miss it. The killer made a critical error. On the handles of the garden shears, the killer left behind traces of naphthalene, an organic compound most commonly present in mothballs. Extraordinary! The wonders of modern forensics. I wager our killer would never expect something as simple as mothballs would be their undoing. I am as eager as you are to get to the bottom of the willful destruction of police evidence, Matthew, but the Commissioner insists our priority is solving Maximilian's murder. Let us review the facts. The crime was reported by Mr. Poe's kitchen hand, Audrey Scott, who seems to think this could have been a robbery. The victim's longtime friend, Sheila Black, was at the Poe residence this very morning, and as indicated, the victim has been understandably depressed since his wife's passing. In all honesty, Matthew, if the victim hadn't been stabbed with those garden shears, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a simple case of suicide. Marshal Matthew, my conscience will not allow me to remain silent any longer. I'm the one who killed Maximilian Poe.
But listen to this. That's a different kind of sound. The sound of the weekend.
We'll find out if Father Donovan is telling the truth after this.